Arsenal still have a specialist. Sorry, Arsenal still need a specialist goal scoring striker. I think the options to play Kai as a false nine or a great striker in the box would complete the attack. Obviously, Arsenal transfers. I mean, you're linked to Kimmich again today. You're linked to Nico Williams again today. It does appear that you're sort of moving away from the striker market, according to a lot of the people close to Arsenal, Potsy.
That's what some people have said. I think it would be foolish. I'm not going to lie. It's tough when you listen to some of the content creators out there because they can't make their minds up either. Arsenal have scored the most goals. Arsenal have the best goal difference. Arsenal have done this and that. What do they need? A striker. And some people are like, that sounds mad. But I agree with them. And the reason is, when we have a look at our squad, we're not trying to get an 11 together. We've got our 11. We're trying to get a squad that can compete with Manchester City. So when people say to me, why the hell do you need a striker when you've got Havertz? Well, it's not to replace Havertz. It's not to back up to Havertz. It's to upgrade on Eddie Nketiah. That's what we've got at the moment. We've got Eddie, yeah? Jesus is there as well. But the talk is that Jesus might be used more as a kind of across the front three, which I think he is. I think he's more of a winger. He's a fantastic footballer, but I don't see him as a killer in the box. We need a centre forward that is a killer in the box, because there were games last season where we had Havertz fluffing his lines and we had Jesus fluffing his lines. And if that was a killer in the box, then we can actually get to the next stage. Now, when you're flinging on Eddie Nketiah away to Bayern Munich, you've got problems. If you're flinging on Kai Havertz to give you a different dimension, or Leandro Trossard playing there, or if you've got some of the backup option that's not better than Eddie Nketiah, then you're okay. And that's where we're at. And that's why we need a striker that's going to be that guy that 100% is that 9. Now, I actually think whoever we sign, we will be starting Kai Havertz in the number 9 this season. Whether you think that's a good or bad thing, I think Kai Havertz will start for Arsenal at number 9. And I think we'll mould that new striker in, whether it's Gyökeres, whether it's Osimhen, whether it's Tony, whether it's Watkins, whoever the hell it is, just give me the name of who it is. And then I still think Havertz will start as the number 9. The reason that we're being linked away with players other than the striker is because we need players other than a striker. We need a winger still, because Reece Nelson's going to go probably to Palace or Fulham or Wolves, and we're going to need cover for Saka. So we can play Jesus wide for Saka as cover. I think that would be good. But I honestly believe there needs to be another wide player coming in to the football club as well. So when people say to me, who are you getting to upgrade on? Who's not going to play? The answer is not Havertz will be dropped, or Saka will be dropped, or Martinelli will be dropped. The answer is we're upgrading on the likes of Fabio Vieira, Reece Nelson, Eddie Nketiah, Mohamed El Neni, Jorginho, Cedric. These are the guys that needed to have been upgraded on. Now, some of them have moved on already. That's what we need to do now, is upgrade on them, so that your bench then looks very, very good. And it looks to be competing with the likes of Manchester City. Because when you look at the bench at City, you think, crikey, they've got Grealish to bring on. They've got Bernardo Silva on the bloody bench today. They've got Kovacic who's sitting there. They've got Julian Alvarez. They've still got Nathan Ake on the bench here defensively. We can't do that. The bench last season was nowhere near that level. So that's where we have to go, man. To our next level is to go and do that. And I think for anybody thinking that we're not going to get a centre forward, I'm not saying they're wrong, but I was saying it would be foolish if Arsenal don't go and get a striker, in my opinion.
The way I look at it is, and I said this yesterday, is I personally don't think you need a striker. You scored 91 goals in the league and you got over 120 in all comps. I think in all comps you scored 11 goals less than Manchester City, who went further than you in the FA Cup. What I think Arsenal really need is Thomas Partey will leave in the number 6. I think you need an out-and-out 6 because Rice will now play as this advanced 8, and you need a right winger or a winger who can play both on the left and the right that gives real competition, like a Nico Williams, who's lighting it up at the Euros, carrying Bilbao to a Copa del Rey. I don't think Arsenal are going to go out there and drop 120 million on this sack. I think Gyökeres, I don't think at this moment in time, I mean, he come out from, yes, he teared it up in Portugal, but it's not renowned as a top league. You link with Santiago Jimenez, who did the same sort of thing with Feyenoord. Eredivisie, the bottom 5 teams are lower than the League One standard. I think you need a wide player, because if my thing is, if Martinelli gets injured, Trossard comes in, right? If Havertz gets injured, you could potentially play Jesus, or Trossard comes in. If Saka gets injured, The drop-off is huge to Reece Nelson. I am absolutely amazed you didn't look at Elise.
Same.
I think that would have been the one. But you've got players like Nico Williams, you've got players like Pedro Neto. I think Arsenal will be better going and bringing in a Kimmich and a Neto than dropping £80 million on a Gyökeres, because you do need another captain on the pitch. Like Kimmich, if he's available, what is he, 29, been there, seen it, done it. He's the sort of guy that drags you through. I thought he was magnificent, by the way, home and away against you in the Champions League as well. I think he even got a goal. You need someone like that. I don't think bringing a striker in is going to make you that much better. You and Tottenham are the only team in the top five, at the top six, top seven in the Premier League who didn't have a player get over 20 Premier League goals. Right? Watkins, Palmer, Isak, Haaland, Salah, or whatever. But you still outscored every other team than Manchester City. Does a striker in those one-off games really make that much of a difference, or is it overall better squad depth? I think it's squad depth, personally.
I think it is squad depth. I agree, because it isn't just the striker we need. I do think there's problems at right-sided centre-back if Saliba was to get a knock. I don't think we've got adequate cover for Saka. I don't think we've got adequate cover for Ødegaard, believe it or not. A lot of people do. They think Vieira and Smith-Rowe's it. I'm not too sure. There's definitely a huge drop-off there. And I think the centre-forward position, Henry, for me, I don't see Jesus as an out-and-out striker. I don't think Havertz is either. Now, what I will say about Kai Havertz is he did score 14 goals last season. He played in midfield for half the season. So he's definitely got contribution goals in him. I just think there was opportunities, particularly against West Ham at home, Liverpool at home in the FA Cup, Bayern Munich, where we could have quite comfortably, Aston Villa at home where we lost, we could have quite comfortably won all of those games with a killer in the box. And we didn't have that. And we had someone that gets 1 in 3. And I think Arsenal have got a lot of 1 in 3s. I think Trossard, in fact, is our actual best finisher. And other than him, I actually wouldn't want to put any money on us going through 1-on-1. Even Martinelli, who I love as a finisher, I think putting money on him, Saka, Havertz, Jesus, even Ødegaard, I wouldn't want to put my house on it. I would on Trossard, because he don't miss.
So what striker would you bring in? You got Garassi, who's like £15 million.
Yeah, not sure about him, if I'm honest. I haven't seen enough of him. Out of the one, I mean, Isak's the obvious choice, right? But I don't think we're going to get him. Newcastle aren't going to sell him. If I had to look at one of them now, I do like Ivan Toney, I must say. I do like Ivan Toney because he's Premier League proven. But I do really like Victor Gyökeres. And the reason I like Victor Gyökeres is because I've seen...
It's risky, though. Do you know if it's a big risk? He's come out of a league
that's... I agree. What one isn't? What one isn't a risk?
Tony?
Right, Osimhen. So Tony, who I've just mentioned, is probably not less risk, but is doing it at the front line at Brentford different to doing it on the front line to Arsenal.
He's going to get a lot more service in an Arsenal shirt.
He will, and I like Tony a lot. I do. I think he's a great player. So that's one option. But Gyökeres, Osimhen, Boniface, Garassi, they're all a risk. Every single one of them. I like Gyökeres because everywhere he's been so far, he's delivered. So he's done it in England. He's done it in Portugal. It wasn't like, he's gone to France and scored 30 goals, come to Coventry and couldn't hit a barn door. People will laugh and say, oh, it's England. It was the bloody championship. Man, that's a very tough, physically demanding, competitive league. And he took Coventry to the playoff finals on his own, right? Because he scored about 29 goals. Then he went to Portugal and got over 30 goals for them. So I don't think it would be a bad signing. There's a release clause of about 80 million, which is not a lot of money for a striker nowadays when you look at what people are paying. I don't think it would be a bad signing. And I also don't think that if we buy him for 80, we can't then afford a midfielder and we're going to have to go and buy someone for 15 million. Arsenal have got like 200 million plus their player sales that they want. Now, at the moment, the PSR thing, we can't sign anyone until that goes over too. But I think a lot of clubs are like that. But Arsenal are not skint, bruv. If you look at the situation...
What about Dovbek at Girona? He just won the golden boot.
Dovbek's another one. Would that be a risk? Yeah, it would. 100% it would. Because he's coming over from a different league. So they're all going to be risks. And I like what Gyökeres has done so far in the last couple of years. I think on form, he's probably one of the best ones. He's got a better form than Osimhen. It's mad. So he's probably the one I would look at.
I like Victor Gyökeres. In terms of, again, what I've seen, that there's talent there. There's always a question, will it translate to your team? Will it translate to the Prem? And those questions are pretty much there on most of these players. But I like Gyökeres. I honestly see the arguments. I think the merit in the argument is on both sides. Yes, record-breaking seasons 2 years running for Arsenal in terms of goals. But do they have that person in their team who scores those half chances, those quarter chances, those goals that shouldn't be goals in those big games where you're not creating the gilt edge opportunities because you're up against big teams? Probably not. At the same time, again, they're linked to Joshua Kimmich. A number of teams are, like Man City are in for him. There's lots of teams looking at him. And I think that's a player that Arsenal should be going for. Because if Arsenal, I mean, it's Arsenal's name that keeps getting brought up along with those other teams at the minute. A lot of the articles out there around it. If Arsenal could bring in someone like a Kimmich, you put him in the midfield. He also can cover, obviously, at right back as well. So he's got some versatility in there. You've got the Nico Williams links as well. What's your take on Nico Williams, Dan? Because, again, he's a player that I see linked to Arsenal, and I see some gooners talk about, wow, I'm so excited. And then there are others that think he's sort of a slightly better version of Adama Traore.
Yeah, I don't know enough about Nico Williams, and I watch enough of him. I hear good things, so I do. But like we've just been discussing in terms of a risk, I think it would be a risk because he's got to come over to a different league. I like what I see. I like what I've seen on skills. I'm very, very reluctant to look at YouTube clips and think this guy's great, because if you do that, you'll look at the likes of Mustafi and think he's Cannavaro. Yeah. So you've got to be really careful with YouTube clips. But from what I've seen and heard, very talented boy. But I'm kind of on the I would rather us go for Eze or Pedro Neto than
You linked to Eze today.
Link with Eze, which is good. And I'll tell you why that's good, because he's versatile. And
That's not
he's Premier
good.
League proven. Why is that not good?
Because that's if you sign Eze, I'll be furious because we've been
right.
we've had his agents, his mum, his sister, his dog in the box. We've had everyone in one of our boxes. If you sign him, plus he's under the same agency as all the Tottenham players, I'll be furious. But it's brilliant for Arsenal. But
I think he'd be a class signing because, I mean, I think he can play in the attacking 8. I think he can play in the 10. I think he can play either side, right or left. I actually think he's probably a better signing for someone than Elise, and that might sound crazy because Elise is a baller, but Elise, from what I've seen, is a right winger. Eze, I think
release clause as well. So if you want him,
and I don't know what the release clause is. Is it about 60 million or something?
60 million with 8 million in add-ons, and in the games where you're like,
do it.
Because I think the question mark for me will be when you're playing the Crystal Palace side, teams naturally come on to you. There's more space in behind. Can Eze do it in a Tottenham and Arsenal or Man United side where you're playing against low blocks every week? But in the games where you're up against, I don't know, a Leicester away, you can just sit Rice in the 6 and play both Eze and Odegaard, and they can just rotate between the 8 and the 10. I think
Eze was with us, man. He left us at 12 years old. He was in our academy. Would he want to come back?
I want him now.
Yeah. Would he want to come back? I don't know. I think he would come to Arsenal. That's for sure. I would normally say he would choose Tottenham over Arsenal in this scenario because he's guaranteed first-team football at Tottenham. But I think he'd probably be guaranteed first-team football at Arsenal as well. I really do. I think if he was to play Rice in the 6 and have Eze and Odegaard there, I think you could do that option.
Where does he play at Spurs, though? That's the thing.
Well, I suppose he plays wide for you, does he? I don't know.
Well, the hierarchy.
Didn't you say Spurs are pulled out of Eze?
No, it's looking unlikely now that we're gonna sign him, which I'm gutted about.
Yeah, but you know when your club's media, because that's probably come from Goldie, right?
Mm. Oh yeah, Gold will be keep the talk down.
Typically when they do that, it's because the players pick someone else, so they do the whole clubs looking elsewhere. That's
other transfer targets of like we're looking at Danny Olmo now as well, but
he's not a bad player. He's not a bad. Look, the thing with Eze is if someone like Arsenal come in for him, Spurs just don't have a prayer. You don't have a prayer up against Arsenal, and that's not a dig. I like the players that Arsenal are linked to. I know we mentioned earlier in the show that some people online, fans online, are sort of angry with Arsenal's transfer business, but I do sort of look at it through the lens of the players that predominantly that you're linked to heavily. Most of them are at tournaments right now. I don't understand how Arsenal fans expect these deals to be done. Or am I being naive?
No, you're not. Standard FC, where are the signings? Why the transfer window's open? Why is there's 2 international tournaments going on? I see the Tottenham The Tottenham standard, I don't know how we've got standards in our football club because half the time we're all over the place. But Tottenham creators are coming out or Twitter. Where are the signings? The window's been open for 15 days, right? And there's 2 major tournaments going on. When England get knocked out, I put my life on. Within 72 hours, you'll see concrete links. Eze will be moving somewhere, or there will be a link coming out saying Eze's future to be decided in the coming days. Like, why would Eze leave while he's in a training camp with England? Like you said, if Eze was to leave the camp for 24 hours and go and sign for Arsenal, and I was an England player, I'd be going ballistic. Like, what do these fans or people expect?
It's weird to me. It's weird. It's crazy. That just this panic. Oh my god, that season's over. We haven't signed no one yet. No one signed anyone.